Hi, my name is Sebastian from codingthesmartway.com, and today in this video we are going to build a small application, a small Vue.js 2 application, and using the Firebase real-time database as a backend. So you will learn how to set up an initial Vue application, how to install the Firebase library and the Vue Fire library, and make use of both libraries to integrate Firebase real-time data into your project. So stay tuned and let's get started. Okay, let's see what we are going to build in this tutorial. Here you can see the sample application which we are going to build today. And you can see it's just a very simple application using the Bootstrap framework to add some styling here to the elements. And that application can manage a list of ebooks and store a link to the ebook homepage. So if I click here on the title, I'm taken to a URL of the ebook website. And here in that list, you are able to delete entries. And with the form, with the input form available here on top, we are able to add entries. So let's try it out. I'll give here a test title, then author, and then some website, and add it here to the list. So here you can see it's added, and now I can click on that link. I'm taken to the URL, and of course I can delete that entry here, and by clicking here on that trash icon, and it's confirming that it was deleted by bringing up a toast notification, as you can see. And the backend of the application is built up by using a Firebase real-time database. So the data we are entering here are synced to the Firebase database, and so we can open up multiple instances of the same application. So you can see it here. Now I have opened up two instances of our application here in window 1 and window 2. You can see both instances are containing the same list of data. And furthermore, I've opened in a third window here the Firebase backend, which gives us a real-time view on the database which we are using. And here you can see that's the structure of the database. And of course, I will explain it in more detail in the implementation part of this video. But for now, you can see we have within the books section here 2 entries, 1 and 2, and that is exactly reflecting the entries which we have here in the table. And now you can see if I'm going to add another item here, maybe in the first instance, you can see that the real-time feature is working in the background. So let's do it again. Let's add test title here, name an author, and use some URL, and then I'm going to say okay, add book by hitting that button here, and you can see it's at the same time added here to the list. We have now a third entry available here. We have it here in the second instance available as well, as you can see here, without needing to update anything manually. And if we now take a look here at the Firebase backend, you can see here another entry added inside the books section, which is containing the data of our third book item here. Okay, and now with the third item available here in our list and in our database, I can of course delete it again by using the icon here, maybe in the second application instance. And now you can see if I click on that item, it's deleted at the same time here from the list and from the database. Again, I do not need to reload anything manually. It's synced across all instances across the backend here, and all application instances are showing the same set of data. Okay, now that you have a first impression of our project we are going to create in the next minutes, let's start at the very beginning with our implementation. And before actually going into the code, we need to prepare the Firebase service so that we have a real-time database available, which we can use later on in our Vue.js 2 application. And we do that by logging in into the Firebase console. So that is the backend of Firebase, and you can access it by using the following URL, as you can see here, console.firebase.google.com. And I'm already logged into the Firebase service. So if you have not created a Firebase account before, you first need to do so, and then you are able to log in and see that screen here. And you can see on the first screen, you can see an overview of Firebase projects you have already created, and that you can see here in my account I've already created one Firebase project. That was the one I used to demonstrate the application. And now we are starting over from scratch, and I'm going to create a second project, and I do that by clicking here on the link, create new project. And now I'm getting presented that pop-up window here, and I can give a name here. So let's say Vue.js Firebase 02. And then I can select the country, a region where I want to use servers on which my Firebase database is hosted. I leave it to United States, and then I hit create project. And now Firebase is creating that project. It takes a second, and if the creation process has been completed successfully, I'm taking to the backend of my project. So here in the projects console, you can see that Firebase is actually offering various services. So it starts with authentication services, database services, storage, hosting services, and so on. You can see it here. The service we want to use for our Vue.js application is of course the database service, because we want to have a real-time database store, and that is available by using the Firebase real-time database. And if I click on database here, I'm directly taken to the database backend, and I'm here on the data view. So you can see you have 4 tabs here: data, rules, usage, and backups. And the data which is available in the database right now can be seen here on the data tab view. By default, one root node is available which contains no data so far. So the value is set to null, and now we can start inserting sample data here in the database, so that we have later on, when we integrate the Firebase data store in our Vue.js application and to try to access data coming here from the backend, we have some data available. So let's insert a first book record here, and we do that by clicking here on the root node and then saying plus here with that little icon on the right side. And first I need a node books, and inside of books I'm saying, okay, I want to have the first record here. And now the first book record, as you have seen, is consisting of 3 properties. And now I can start typing in the properties. So the first property is the book title. Let's give it a title, Angular 2. And then I'm hitting tab to get the next line. And in the next line I'm saying, okay, let's use the author property and assign my name as the author value. And then we have a URL, and I'm typing in a URL here. Okay, that's the first book record. And finally, if everything is entered correctly, I can say add, and then you can see it's inserted in the Firebase database. Now we have the books node available. We have a first entry here, which has a key 1, and we have 3 properties maintained for this first book entry, and that's it for now. The last thing we need to change here in the Firebase backend is not in the data tab here, it's in the rules tab. And if I click on it, you can see here is a default rule set already available, which is defining 2 two rules actually, one for read access and one for write access. And basically those two rules are saying only authenticated users can read data from the database and write data to the database. And because we want to keep things as simple and easy as possible, I'm going to change that default entry here to simply saying true here. Okay. True as well. And then I publish the changes. And now it's saying, okay, or it's printing out a warning message. Your security rules are defined as public. Anyone can read or write to your database. And that's okay for the moment. Of course, if you want to use Firebase in a production environment, that is not something you should do. But for the moment, for our test application, it's sufficient that we do not need to deal with Firebase authentication later on. So I will leave the rules as you can see here and continue with the implementation in the next part. Okay, next we are starting with the implementation of the Vue.js project and then integrating the data access to the Firebase database. And to do so, I'm switching over to the terminal and I'm starting or initiating a new Vue.js project. And I do that by using the Vue command line interface, which gives me access to the Vue command. If you have not installed the Vue command line interface on your system yet, you can go to the project's website at vue.js.org and go to the installation section and find instructions of how to install the Vue command line interface. And I'm now using that interface to execute the following command. I'm saying Vue init webpack because I want to use the webpack Vue.js project template, and then specify a name for the project, and I'm calling the project Vue.js Firebase. Okay, and then hit return. And now the Vue command line interface is asking some questions on the command line. First, I need to enter a project name, but I can skip it and leave it to the default here. Then we need a project description. I leave it to the default as well. The author. Then we need to select the Vue build type. I select runtime plus compiler. I do not want to use ESLint. Do not want to use Karma and Mocha for my project, and do not want to use end-to-end tests with Nightwatch. So I'm saying no here again. And now you can see it's generated, it's downloaded to a new folder. And now I can change into that folder, Vue.js Firebase. And the first thing I need to do here is to execute npm install to make sure that all the dependencies for our Vue.js 2 project are downloaded and installed to the node modules folder. So let's execute npm install, and it takes a second to download everything and to install. Okay, here we are. Everything was downloaded and installed successfully. And now, before going on and diving deeper into the implementation part, we need to add two more dependencies, or let's say two more libraries to our project. The one thing which we need is the core Firebase library. And the other thing which is needed is the VueFire library, which makes it very easy within our Vue.js application to bind Vue.js data properties to Firebase data. So we are installing both libraries here, and we do that again by using the npm command. And I'm saying npm install Firebase, which is a core library, and VueFire, and I'm saying -- save. By using the save option here, we make sure that both dependencies, Firebase and VueFire, are added to the package.json file as well. So let's execute it. Both libraries are downloaded and installed again into the Node modules folder. Okay, here we are again. So everything now is installed and available for use. And the next thing I'm going to do is to open up Atom, because Atom is the code editor I'm going to use here. And I'm opening up Atom with the project structure here in our Vue.js Firebase folder. And now the first thing we need to do is to go to the source folder here and open main.js, which is basically the main entry point of the Vue.js application. You can see it here. Vue is loaded and a new instance of the main framework's application class is created. And that's the right place here in that file to add VueFire as well. And first we need to import it by adding here another import statement, and I'm saying import VueFire from VueFire. Okay, like so. And next I need to add VueFire as a plugin to the framework, and that can be done by using vue.use and hand over the VueFire class here. Okay, that's all what's needed. Now VueFire is configured to be used in our project, and next we can go on with the implementation and switch over to app.vue. Okay, within app.vue you can find a single file implementation of a Vue.js component, and a single file implementation of a component is split up into 3 sections. You can find a template section here within that file. You can find the script section and the style section, which is containing CSS code, which is used here in the template of the component. And the app.vue file is containing the main application component. And you can see it here in the template. The div section is containing 2 elements. It's containing an image tag here, which is including the Vue.js logo in the output. And it's including the output of the hello component, which is a second component which is implemented here in hello.vue. But for the moment we do not want to use a second component, so we can delete it here and maybe delete the logo as well, so that we have an empty template. And as I'm not using the hello component here in the template, I can delete as well the components property here from the components configuration object. Okay, so the first step we need to make and to implement here in app.vue is to configure the access to the Firebase database. And we do that by starting here in the script section. And to gain access to the Firebase real-time database, we need to get access to the Firebase API. And to get access, I need a configuration object which needs to be passed to the Firebase service, which contains a set of properties like the API key, the database URL, and so on, which is needed to get access to the Firebase database. So let's start here with defining a config object. Okay, and now the easiest way to bring in the properties and to assign the right property values for our Firebase configuration object is to go to the Firebase project console, and here on the overview page you can see you have a link which is named Add Firebase to your web app, And if I click on that link, it brings up a pop-up window giving me access to a pre-filled configuration object, and here are the properties I need, and I can simply copy and paste those properties, and I have configured everything according to the Firebase settings for my Vue.js Firebase 02 project. Okay, with the configuration object available, I can now establish a connection to Firebase, and I do that by saying let app Firebase dot initialize app, and I'm passing over the configuration object. And okay, one thing is missing because I need to access to the Firebase core library. I need to add an import statement here as well, and I need to say import Firebase from Firebase. And now I have access to that Firebase object, and I can use it here to execute the method initialize app. And now the reference to the Firebase backend is available here with an app, and now I can establish a connection to the database. So let's say let db equal to app.database, and the call of the database method is returning a reference to the database. And in our application, we want to have access to the data which is stored inside the books node in the database. And to get another reference which is pointing to the books node, I'm defining another variable here, and I'm saying let books ref equals db ref. And now I'm passing the name of the node, and in that case it's books. Okay, with the reference to the books node of the Firebase real-time database available here, we can now use VueFire to bring in another property here to our component configuration object, and this property is called Firebase, and within that property or we are assigning an object here to the Firebase property, and within that object we are defining another property, and that property is called books, and we are assigning books ref, which is the reference to the books node in the Firebase database. And now we are able to use books for data access in our template, and you will see it in a minute, and that actually makes integrating Firebase database and outputting Firebase data in our Vue.js view layer very easy. Okay, now we are nearly ready to implement the template, and within the template implement the output of the books data from the Firebase database. But before doing so, we need to complete one more thing, and therefore I'm opening up index.html from the root folder of my project. And in the demonstration of our sample application, you already saw that we are using Bootstrap to include some styling in our user interface. And to be able to use Bootstrap in our project, we need to include the Bootstrap libraries in our project as well. And the easiest way to do so is include Bootstrap from a content delivery network. So we do not need to install it here locally within our project. We only need to bring in the remote files here by first using a link tag. And let me bring it in here in the head section of index.html. Okay, here we are including the Bootstrap CSS file, and together with the CSS file we also do need the Bootstrap JavaScript file. And let me copy the corresponding script tag in as well. And as Bootstrap makes use of jQuery, I need to include jQuery here as well. And again, I'm including jQuery by using a content delivery network. Okay, no, that was wrong. Let me try it again. Okay, here we are. That's the jQuery library. And if you want to know where you can find those links, you can go to the Bootstrap website and go to the jQuery website and search for CDN, and you will find the corresponding links where you can retrieve the files from a remote location. Okay, let's save it. And next continue with the template implementation and go back into app.vue. Okay, here I'm back in app.vue, and you can see I'm already in the template section, and the first thing I'll do here is to assign a Bootstrap class, and I'm assigning the container class here to the top level div element within my template section. Okay, and okay, let's use another div here. Give it a class of page header. So within the page header section, we are including an h1 and saying, okay, Vue.js 2 and Firebase sample application. Okay. Then we're using another div section here and assigning a class of panel and panel default. And then I'm using another div section which is included here in the panel and assigning a class of panel heading. Okay, and include an h3 tag here and say, okay, books list. Okay, under the div section of panel heading, we are including another div section and assigning the class panel body, of course. Okay, and here is the right place now to output the table, which is including basically a list of books which are retrieved from our Firebase instance, and I do so by saying table, and I'm assigning again Bootstrap classes here. Let's use the class table and table strapped. Okay, within the table I do have a section t-head. That's the header of the table. And I'm printing out the column headlines here. First I will need a title headline, and second I need the author headline, and yeah, under the t-head section I'm including the t body, and within the t body I'm printing now out the data, and I'm doing that by using a table row, and I'm printing out a table row for each of the book entries in the Firebase books node, and we do have access to that set of data by using the books variable we have defined earlier. And to iterate over the items within books, I'm using a Vue.js directive, which is called Vue-for, and I'm saying, okay, book in books, which gives me access to the current book object by using the variable book here. And now I'm able to print out the information. I'm including again two columns here. Okay, and the content is book.title. I'm using the interpolation syntax here, and book.author. And you saw it in our sample application I showed in the beginning. We do not want to only print out the title. We want to print out the title as a link, which gives us access to the book's URL. And we do so by using an H element here and saying href. And I need to use another directive here. I'm using the vbind directive because I want to bind it to a property of our book object. And I'm saying, okay, it equals to book.url. Okay, and I'm closing the link element here. And that's basically all what's needed to print out the title in link form. And now the link is pointing to the URL, which is stored in book.url. Okay, with the implementation of the template available, we can now switch back to the terminal and just try to start up our development server. And I'm still within the project directory. You can see it here, and I'm typing in npm run dev. This is starting up a web server and starting up the Vue.js application in development mode. Okay, so it's starting up, and it's loaded here in the browser automatically. So just place it here side by side. Okay, we can see that the result is still empty, so something is not correct so far. So let's access the Chrome developer tools here and see what's wrong. Okay, app database. Yes, there is a typo in the function call of app database. You can see it here. We need to replace it. Okay, so save it. Again, there is a second error. Okay, books ref is not defined. I forgot to include an S here. Okay, it's books ref. Okay, there it is. Now the application is running. You can see the list of items is printed out. And to make it look like a little bit better, I'm going here to the style section, and let's remove the text align center styling. Okay, so now you can see we have the list available here. We have the two information included, title and author, and we can here click on the title, and the book page is opening up. Okay, let's go back. Okay, next we are going to extend the application by including an input form so that we can add new book data to the database, and that we can see that the data we are adding to the real-time database are directly reflected in our books list. So let's again open app.vue and go to the script section here, and the first thing we now need is another property here in our component configuration object, and the property we are needing is data, and in this case data is a function, and the function is returning the data model of our Vue component. And we do need something which is an object and maybe called new book, and this new book object should contain the properties we're expecting to receive from the form to describe a new book, and that is of course title, and we are setting it to just an empty string. author, and URL. Okay, so we need that object here, new book, so that we have something in our data model here in our Vue.js application we can bind our input elements to. Okay, a colon is missing here, so that is the exact syntax. Okay, with the new book object available here in our data model, we can go back to the template implementation and add here on top of the panel we have been using for including the table output, add another panel section, and it's just the same. We begin by using a div element and assign the class panel default, and we give our panel a heading where we are including a headline. Let's say we are using add book, and then of course we need the corresponding panel body section, and within the body section we can now continue to implement the input form. So let's implement the form, and we do so by starting with a form tag, of course, and let's assign an ID of form. We do not need an action, and we do not need the method here. Instead we need a class, of course, because again our form is built up by using bootstrap classes, and we are assigning the form inline class. Okay, here within our form, let's start with the first form group by using a div element again, and we're assigning the class form group. And within that first form group we do need a label, and we do need that label for the field book title we are going to implement next, and the label should be just title. Okay, and next of course the corresponding input element, and that should be of type text. It gets an ID here, and that ID should be book title. Okay, and let's use the bootstrap class form control here, and then we would like to bind to our new book object to the property title, and the binding syntax in Vue.js is very easy. We can simply use a directive called v-model, and we're assigning a string to that directive containing the name of our property. In our case it's new book.title we want bind to, and that is all we need for the first form group. So let's save it. Okay, you can see here it is, and now we are including two more form groups, so 1 and 2, and the next form group of course is for entering the author. So I need to change title to author, so the label is also author, and then we have here the ID is book author. Okay, the class of course is the same as form dash control, and we are binding in that case to new book.author. So okay, let's save it. The third input element here is book URL. Okay, and we are binding against the URL property, of course. So let's save it, and you can see here our inline form is already rendered out. Now we have three input elements, title, author, and URL. But something is missing, of course, because we do need a button to submit the form, and the button is added here just before the closing form tag, and is implemented by using input type submit in that case. We do not need a name here. Instead, I do need a class, and the class is button primary to get a blue button from the Bootstrap framework, and the value should be add book, so that the user knows that he's adding a new book item by clicking on that button. Okay, let's save it. Here it is. Okay, the next thing we need to add here in our form element is an event handler which responds to our submit event, because now with the button available here in our form, the user can click on that submit button, and then the submit event of the form fires. And what we want to have is that the submit event handler is collecting the data the user has entered here in the form and passes that data on to the Firebase real-time database and inserts a new book item there. Okay, let's first here within the form element add the VON directive colon, and we want to respond to the submit event, and we are using the notation .prevent because the form should not be submitted by using the default behavior. So we want to prevent the default behavior. We want to take over full control of how the form is submitted by using the following event handler. We call it add book. Okay, like so. And next, of course, we need an event handler method add book, which needs to be implemented here in our script section. And within our component configuration object, we are adding another property here, and that property is called methods. Okay, and we are assigning an object which is containing all the methods we are implementing here in that component. And yeah, the first method we want to implement here is add book, of course, because that is our event handler for the submit event, and we are assigning a function here. And within that function, we are using again the books ref variable and push this dot new book, because that is your data the data object with the properties title, author, and URL, and the properties have been bound to the input elements to our form. So the properties of the new book object are containing the values which have been inputted by the user, and we can use that object to add it here to the database by using the push method. Okay, and the last thing, now we need to reset the form, and we can simply do it by resetting the new book properties. First do it with title, and then with author. We are assigning empty strings here, and the URL as well. Okay, here we are. Okay, let's try it out if everything is working as expected. Let's try to insert another book here. Let's see, okay, give it a title, author, and then give it a URL. Okay, and now I hit add book, and you can see it's immediately available here as another row in our list. And if I now switch over to the Firebase database, you can see here the new book object has been inserted. The ID here has been assigned automatically, and that was my first item here, and now I have the second item available here, and it's synced in real time with the data the list is presenting in that section here. Okay, let's now include another option, so the option to delete entries from the database and from the list, of course. And we do that by first starting in the template. Here I'm in the template, in the section where the table output is generated, and the first thing I do here is to include another column in our table. So let's give it a headline, delete, and then here in the table body, in that column, generate for each row an icon which we can use from the Glyphicon library from the Bootstrap framework, and we do it as you can see here. We are using a span element and give it a class of Glyphicon, and we are using the icon Glyphicon trash. Okay, and then we need of course an action which takes place if the user clicks on that icon, and we are again using the event binding syntax by using the directive v-on : and then followed by the event we want to respond to, and in that case that's the click event, and we are assigning the event handler here, and in in that case we are naming the event handler method remove book, and we are passing in one parameter, and that is the current book object. Okay, so you can see it here, it's immediately there. We now have another column included here in our list. Here's the trash icon generated for each row. If I now click on that item, nothing is happening, of course, because we have not implemented remove book, and that is the next thing we are going to do. So here in our methods object, I'm adding now another method, and that method is called remove book. Okay, and of course it's a function which takes the parameter, and now I need to remove the book from the Firebase database, and by removing the book entry from the Firebase database, we make sure that the entry is removed from our table as well, because the table is bound to the data in our Firebase database, and the only thing we now need to do is to use the book_ref object again, and then select the child, which can be done by passing in to the call of the child method by passing in the key, and the key is available here in our current book object, and we can select the key by selecting .key as an item here, and that needs to be passed into child, and now we have access to or we have a reference available to the child element, the book element, which we want to delete, and the last thing I now need to do is to call the remove method here. Okay, let's save it. and see if it is working. So now let's maybe delete the second entry here. I'm clicking on the trash icon and you can see it's gone immediately. And if I recheck it with a database, you can see it's deleted from the database as well. Okay, so let's give our application the final touch by adding a toast notification, which is coming up in case a user deletes a book entry from the list. And to do so, we are using the Toaster JavaScript library, which is great for integrating toast notifications in your application. So to add that library to our project, I need to go back to the console. So I'm stopping the web server here for a moment, and then using the npm command once again to install the package, which is called Toaster. And again, I'm using -- save to make sure that this new dependency is stored in package.json as well. So let's install it. Okay. So it's downloading to Node modules here. Okay, there we are. And yeah, now we need to go back to Atom. And the first thing I'm adding is an index.html. The Toaster library needs its own CSS file, which needs to be included here in the header section. And as you can see, I'm including it here from a CDN again for faster delivery. And okay, I save it. And now I can go back to app.vue. And here on top of the script section, I can include another import. And I'm importing Toaster from the Toaster library. And now we can use Toaster to bring up toast notifications, and we're going to use it here within our method handler for the remove case. So within remove book, we can very simple bring up a toast notification by just saying Toaster success and then passing in the message string we would like to have, and I'm choosing here a book removed. Okay, before trying out this new feature, don't forget to start again the development web server. Let's do it with npm run dev once again. Okay, here we are. Now we can add our second book item once again. Okay, add book, here it is. And if I now click on the trash icon here to delete that second item again, you can see the toast notification is coming up and saying book removed as expected. Okay, thank you very much for watching. This was Sebastian from codingthesmartway.com. If you do like my videos, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube, and also visit my website at codingthesmartway.com. Thank you very much again. See you the next time. Bye.